hour so we can take your calls and be able to help you out understanding everything you need to know today, changing the topic a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, we had a friend of mine, Shanne Sleder, and he is a mortgage advisor. One of the things he deals with is all kinds of mortgages. And the one type of mortgage that people always go like, oh my gosh, is reverse mortgages. Now, there's no reason for alarm. In fact, we are going to defray all myths about reverse mortgages. And I asked, and this was literally, I was at lunch with Shanne yesterday, and I said, oh, can you call into the show at 2? And he's like, I have a busy schedule. I said, I know, Shanne. I just want to talk to you, have you on the air again, because I just really wanted to follow up. So Shanne, welcome to the Word on Wealth, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Gary, for inviting me again. I'm happy to be here.
So what I wanted to do, I guess I was getting, the more I talk to you about reverse mortgages, about the whole mortgage industry, the more excited I get to have to kind of share the information that you provide to people. And I wanted just I'm trying to do this so that I have kind of a little blip that I can share on, kind of from the lips of Shanne, what is a reverse mortgage, and compare a reverse to conventional to non-amortizing, and just kind of go through that kind of as a basic so we can kind of get it in our heads. And I have some more questions for you after that. Is that okay?
Sure, definitely. So either a traditional loan or reverse mortgage, the biggest similarity is they're both going to put liens on your property. So either way, you have a lien on your property. But the biggest difference is that on a reverse mortgage, no monthly mortgage payments are required. If a client wants to make a payment to keep the interest low, the balance from growing, that can be done. But traditional loan, you're required to make a payment. You're paying the loan balance down over time, eventually to get to zero. On a reverse mortgage, you are not making any payments. Interest is accruing on the loan. The balance is growing over time using the equity, but it's allowing you to have additional cash flow and not have to have those monthly payments that you're making going forward. So that's really the biggest difference between them. Traditional loan, it can be harder to qualify for because they are going to look more at income and credit score and whether or not you're able to make that payment into the future. Whereas on a reverse mortgage, they're not paying as much attention to credit score. They do look to make sure that you have not had issues before making certain payments, but they've got ways to get around that so that even if you've had some issues, you can still qualify for a reverse mortgage going forward.
Okay, great. Now, one other question is, we don't see it a lot, but the interest-only mortgage, where basically I just call it a non-amortizing, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
But where does that fit into, like an interest-only or non-amortizing home loan?
So the interest-only loan program got a bad rap back in the 2008 mortgage meltdown. There used to be a lot of interest-only programs, and a lot of those went away because, again, each program out there, each loan program, whether it's a reverse mortgage or an interest-only or traditional loan, there are certain circumstances where they work, and there's others where maybe they don't make as much sense. And so there were a lot of people getting interest-only loans that maybe should not have been getting them. And so what happened is they took a program that was specifically made for a certain type of individual, and they ended up almost outlawing it to a degree. There are still some reverse mortgage options out there, but Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac no longer make those available. So we can do interest-only options, which really what happens is you're not paying any principal down on the loan. So you're just paying the interest, so the loan balance is going to stay the same, but it is a way to keep your payment lower and almost an in-between between a traditional loan and a reverse mortgage. But the sources out there are fewer than there used to be, but it is still an option that we can look at.
Interesting. Okay. And it's just because I run into it where people are saying reverse, and it always, that's kind of the negative connotation. And I know sometimes we'll say, well, it's not a reverse mortgage, it's a home equity conversion mortgage. And, but that kind of fits into, well, it is a home equity conversion mortgage, quote, reverse mortgage. So, so then kind of if we just did it on like people say like a regular conventional loan, just in our vernacular, we say, well, that eventually the loan is going to be paid off. If it's a 30-year loan, it gets paid off in 30 years, it goes away, which means it amortizes over 30 years. When you have an interest-only loan, the the loan never amortizes. It always just sits the same. And when we say reverse, it's because the interest is not being paid. And so that just gets added to the loan, and that's reverse amortize. So the other thing, and I appreciate that explanation. Now I want kind of a Shanne Sleder debunk for us on kind of one of or two of the reverse mortgage myths that make me crazy. And so I want you to debunk a couple myths. But first of all, if people do want to talk to you about whether it's a reverse mortgage or a conventional mortgage, refi, new purchase, all that, what is the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Best way is by phone. My number is 858-829-7186, or they can go to my website, which is SanDiegoMortgageNews.com.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good. Because I got that down so I can give that out. Because I'll have people that will call me and just say, I need a reverse mortgage. I need to talk about it. I need to know my options. We have so many people that just sit on these massive amounts of equity and yet have no income, and they don't have any, it's like we call it house rich and cash poor. And when I see that in San Diego with somebody that's been in their house for 30 or 40 years, I go, there's no reason for that. And that's why I thought we got to get Shanne back on here to help explain some of that. So you are listening to the Word on Wealth. I've got Shanne Sleder. He is a mortgage advisor, and his specialty is reverse mortgages, kind of the ins and outs and how they work and who they're for and who they help and who should avoid them and who should get into them. But it's not only that, he does all kinds of mortgages, conventional, reverse, whatever you need, and depends on what you need. And he's got all kinds of different programs to talk about. His contact information, 858-829-7186. Okay, coming up next, I'm going to ask Shanne to debunk a couple of reverse mortgage myths so we can just get those out of the way and get them out of our head. We'll talk about that coming up next here on The Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQLaw.com.
You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is faith-based investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time, and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com. Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
So, Gary, we've talked a long time about estate administration. So what is that, and why is it important?
Estate administration is the distribution part of estate planning. So when someone passes away and they leave money to beneficiaries, the property has to be administered. So it's like taking it from the decedent to the survivor. That's called the estate administration process. So usually you're going to have a successor trustee that's named in the trust. So have no idea what they're doing because they've never done it before. So then they call on GQ Law and we walk them step by step on how to be a successful and good successor trustee. We also do the required notifications. We notify the Department of Health Services and all the legal requirements so that they can have the estate administration done properly. We help successor trustees be successful.
Call or click to request your free consultation. GQLaw.com. 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
Who will you trust with the biggest financial decision of your lifetime? If you're planning to buy or sell a home in San Diego County, do what I do and work with the true San Diego real estate experts. Ken Pecos and the Pecos Group helped me and my family. They can help you. This is Gary Quackenbush of The Word on Wealth. You hear Ken every week here on The Word on Wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecos has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecos Group. From single-family attached homes to luxury high-value waterfront properties to apartment buildings, Ken Pecos is ready to help you avoid problems and costly mistakes. Learn more online at kenpecos.com. That's Ken Pecos, Pecus.com, or call 619-977-8419.
DRE number 010566969, brokered by eXp Realty.
Sign up today for an unforgettable experience.
Tell a friend about this broadcast outreach, The Word on Wealth, with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST. GQ Law.
You're live.
All right. Thank you for being a listener of The Word on Wealth and being along with us today. We have a very special treat, and that is we've got Ken Sleder, Shanne Sleder, who is Ken Pecos is tomorrow. Shanne Sleder is today, talking about mortgages and specifically reverse mortgages. And this topic always thrills me because when I find somebody that understands it, I like it, because somebody that understands it like Shanne can help us kind of debunk the myths of reverse mortgages. When you typically see them, we're typically dealing, at least in my experience, and Shanne's is different than mine. Understand that, and he'll show that in just a second. But my experience has typically been where I'll have a client that might be, gray-haired, silver-haired for quite a while, sitting on a huge amount of equity in their home, not really having enough money to really enjoy themselves. And so they're stuck. And I'm usually looking at people like that and saying, maybe you should talk about tapping your equity, which Shanne gives me the thumbs up. And then he says, but Gary, there's a lot more than just that scenario for reverse mortgages, which we're going to talk about. Okay. But what I want to just do really briefly is that I want there's kind of the typical things. And I mentioned this before, is that ages ago, when first reverse mortgages were just first heard of, and they were doing them, I think it was in one of the money houses in San Francisco, reverse mortgages were just like an awful deal. But now they're FHA and they got all these. So I want you to kind of debunk what's the kind of the most common thing that gives reverse mortgages like a bad reputation, and then debunk that for us.
Sure. Well, one of the common things that we hear about is that with a reverse mortgage, the client's going to lose all of their equity, or they're going to have a greater chance of losing their home. Mm-hmm. And so really, in reality, though, with the way the reverse mortgages work, usually the maximum you get out initially from a reverse mortgage is about 40 to 50% of your home equity to begin with. So there's substantial equity left over. And in San Diego, we are blessed with such large appreciation that in most cases, the appreciation of the house will outpace the growth of the reverse mortgage. And we do run simulations on that. We show how that works. So usually there's still a significant amount of equity left over when they either sell the house or they pass away. Second part of that is because a reverse mortgage does not require any payment, they are less likely to go into foreclosure. Many seniors end up running into issues going into foreclosures on their property because they fall behind on their mortgage payments, or they go and they get an equity line and the equity line payments go up and all of a sudden they can't pay those and they end up falling behind and getting foreclosed upon. So the reverse mortgage is actually safer in that situation because no payments are required and therefore they cannot be foreclosed on due to missing a payment.
Interesting. Okay. And I appreciate it. Those are the big ones. And I appreciate your explanation on those. Of course. Awesome job. I pick up on, sometimes you have the mom and dad are, thinking about getting a reverse mortgage, and sometimes they'll actually have a conventional mortgage. Maybe it's that, maybe they've only had the house for 20 years. They got a 30-year mortgage. They've got some time left, and they're making this payment, and then, their fixed income, their Social Security is not going up as fast as they thought. The equity in their home is climbing, but their mortgage payment stays the same. Maybe, they're clicking along. And I'll have a lot of the children that, when I say, maybe there's a way to get out from under the mortgage payment. Oh, you're talking about a reverse mortgage. So, well, what happens when mom and dad, because they're really struggling to make that mortgage payment? What happens when the utilities go up? Oh, that happens all the time. Welcome to San Diego. What happens when we have a really cold winter and they run more heat, or they need the air conditioning fixed or something? Are you guys going to foot that bill? Are you going to front all the costs of doing that thing? Are you going to then be working with your parents on if they want to kind of spruce things up a little and maybe replace the carpet and make the house look a little brighter so they can live out their days, And a lot of times you kind of get into this really almost this consternation, like, well, yeah, if that's what mom and dad want, yeah, we can pay for that ourselves. Then if I take the parents aside and say, hey, let's look at this. Your kids, would they agree to help you? Yeah, our kids are doing really well. We're super proud of them, whatever. And I'm sure they would, be willing to help us out with money. And I go, well, if they were, would you feel comfortable every time you need somebody, like, let's say you wanted to get some new carpeting or do some painting and you needed a few extra bucks for that, would you be comfortable every time asking your children for that kind of money? Oh, I'd never do that. I would never do that. No, I wouldn't ever ask them to help me out. So you kind of have these two stories. It's like, I think it's better for people to just be independent, make your own independent financial decision. And one of the specific reasons I had you on is because I want people to know who you are. Number one. And number two is when you'd mentioned to me, I don't hear this from, seriously, I do not hear this from people that do mortgages. Rarely hear it, is you said, we can run some simulations. Gary, we can run your client through these simulations of what would happen if the mortgage rate were this. What if let's assume this on a growth rate and all these things, where you actually, it's like you're this financial planner guy and you're putting together this scenario and saying, here are your options. It's not just like reverse everything you can, spend it like you want. You have different scenarios. So I want you to talk about that a little bit, about what that kind of looks like with like a new client. You're trying to kind of run simulations or help them understand what their options are. If you could share that with us.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So that's one of the reasons I call myself a mortgage advisor, because we want to look at the mortgage holistically. We want to see what the client's needs are. We're going to ask a lot of questions initially as to what is it they're trying to accomplish, what are their short-term financial goals, what are their long-term goals. We're going to look at various different options depending on what it is they're trying to accomplish. And we're going to sit down and we're going to put together different custom loan options for them, whether it's a traditional loan, whether it's a reverse mortgage, whatever it is that we're looking at, so that we can give them multiple options to look at and run different, like you said, simulations for them. If they have an advisor, we'll bring in the advisor so that the advisor has a take on this, because we are dealing with probably one of their largest assets in the house. The mortgage is probably one of the largest debts they're going to have and can be one of their largest payments. So let's make sure we're doing this right versus a lot of what you see nowadays, where people just go online, stick things in the internet, they talk to someone over the phone, they never meet with them in person. So we take a much different approach where we will meet with people if they want to bring their kids in to be part of the conversation. They want to have their advisor as part of the conversation. We will work as together as a team to put together what is the best option for the client.
Okay. I love that part. All right. Terrific. Now, one more, this is more technical, kind of from my own edification. And of course, anybody listening along, let me give your number one more time. Shanne has told us the easiest way to get a hold of him. You got to write down this number. It is 858-829-7186. 858-829-7186. And I'll give his website out in a minute. Okay, so as far as types of reverse mortgages, talk about like when you get the reverse mortgage. So you go through the paperwork, the process, and they say, okay, your equity is this, the interest rate is this, here's the cost of the loan. Do you give them a checkbook where they can then take out the money whenever they want? Do you set up an annuity where they get a certain amount of money per month? How is the money accessed to them, and kind of what are a couple options? I know we don't have a lot of time, but I just kind of want to go over some brief ideas on what options might be if somebody got like a line of credit.
Sure. So that's one of the things that we would do during our consultation, is to figure out exactly how they needed to have access to the money. So there can be lump sums where they take out a certain amount up front to do something they would need. There's a line of credit that is there available for when they need it in the future. And basically what happens is you just have to send in a voucher for the amount of money you want, and that will automatically be wired into your checking or savings account. Or you can set up a certain amount that you will get every month going forward, whether that's for a 5-year period, a 10-year period, or for the rest of your life. You can have a certain amount that's automatically wired every month into your checking account, or a combination of the three. And that's really one of the reasons I love reverse mortgages. They're so flexible how we can set them up to meet multiple needs of the client. We can do all three. And then even if in the future their needs change, we can go back, we can change how they're taking the money. We can now take, let's say, an equity line and convert it to where they're getting a certain amount every month automatically without having to request it anymore when we know that they have that need in the future. So lots of different options on how we can set up the draws for them to have money.
Okay, that's terrific. Appreciate your explanation on that. All right, you guys. So as you can see, Shanne knows what he's talking about. And so if you have questions on this, you're listening to the Word on Wealth. When you call him, you just say, hey, I heard you on the radio with Gary on the Word on Wealth, and I have some questions, and then get that conversation started. We are all about providing people with information and getting it so that people, in the estate planning, trust administration arena, we really want to provide people financial solutions and know that with all of your options are available. Once you know what options are available, then you can kind of move in the right direction. My suggestion, if you're going to look into that, find somebody that you feel like you can consult with, a mortgage advisor like Shanne, and put together your team of people to help you out. You never have to say on the first visit, okay, that's what I want. I'm committed. I'm signing this paperwork. It's a matter of finding people and surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you. And if you find somebody that you don't like and they're not helpful, you get rid of them. There's a lot of options that you have. And I just want you to have those options and know that you're not completely stuck. I've had personal friends that I was begging them to look into things like that and just absolutely would not do it. It really led to, I think, a lot of problems with money and stressing out and, not being able to kind of make ends meet, and yet sitting on a pile of equity. If you have questions on this stuff, I would say call Shanne. See if you like him. 858-829-7186. His website, it's actually really well done. Just remember, San Diego, Morgage News, like newsletter or newspaper, San Diego Mortgage News.com. And that gets you to all of his numbers. You can even see what he looks like and figure out what's going on with Shanne. And that way, maybe if there's a conversation you want to have with him, or get your parents in to see them, or your uncle, your aunt, or whatever, I just think we need to disseminate enough good information that people can make the right decisions. Shanne, you got 15 seconds. Any last words?
I just want to thank you for having me on again, Gary, and I'm here to help anyone who has any questions.
All right. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your expertise. Appreciate you taking the time today. This is the Word on Wealth. We got Gary Quackenbush, and we had mortgage advisor Shanne Sleder. We'll be coming up next a little bit more. I want to talk to you about some types of trusts, special needs trust specifically, coming up next here on the Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST. You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500.
Eli.
Thank you for being along today. I got a little bit of information for you on special needs trusts. We see them quite often, and I want to tell you how they work. There's a lot of kind of buzz about it. I have been involved with doing special needs trusts and helping administer them for quite a while. I have a good friend of mine that came on the show with us several times, Rick Daines, and he belongs to the Special Needs Trust Foundation and all these different organizations that the Autism Foundation, all that, because of the situation that he has with a couple of his children that have special needs. So when when he's talked to me before about special needs trusts, he really was wanting to kind of share the word on how they work. And it seems like not everybody needs one, but I think people would benefit from understanding a little bit more about how they work, how they work and how they don't work. Here's the way it goes. They sometimes are called Good Samaritan trusts or special needs trusts. The idea is that there is money set aside for a special purpose in trust. And anytime something is in trust, that means that there's some document that creates an entity, in this case, a special needs trust. It's a document that describes what it does. So the special needs trust is set apart. It's a trust. That means there has to be a trustee. Usually if there's a trustee and there's a trust, that means it's for the benefit of another person. And that's exactly what happens with a special needs trust or a Good Samaritan trust. It's money that is set aside by a person, the Good Samaritan, if you will. It's set aside to take care of another person. Typically, you find them in situations where there's a beneficiary that after you die, you want to be able to continue to help them. This may be a child that is receiving some type of government assistance. Maybe they're on Medi-Cal. Maybe they receive a disability payments or those type of things. And you, while you're alive, as a parent or a grandparent, are helping them. You're providing them their needs and necessities. You're taking care of them. You're helping them have life enhancement experiences, traveling, school, paying tuition, getting them where they need to be so that they can have a great and wonderful life. Okay. But you're not always going to be here. If you're the grandparent, if you're the parent, you're not always going to be here. Somebody after you die needs to be able to help your special needs child or grandchild. How is that done? Well, if you leave money in a regular old trust, which is wonderful, and it says, I want my money to go to my 5 children in equal shares. Okay, great. That means each of your kids get their 1/5. But if one of those children is receiving government benefits because they're maybe they, like I said, maybe they're special needs, or maybe they have some incapacity or some disabilities. If you now provide money to them through an inheritance, that inheritance will cause that assistance to go away. I mean, even regional centers. So any assistance that was available to them because they don't have their own money, and there's some great programs in California to help out people that are special needs. So if you leave money directly to them, you died, that money goes to them, it now forfeits their benefits until their money is spent. The challenge with that is if the beneficiary is special needs, legally incapacitated, that means they can't legally have money. They can't legally manage money. So if they're inheriting money directly, they're going to have either a guardian, or if they're over 18, they're going to have a conservator that's handling that money for them. So you die, you leave your money to your disabled child. They're going to need a guardianship if they're under 18. They're going to need a conservatorship if they're over 18 for whoever's going to be able to take care of them to now handle their money as well. That's a big deal. Instead, what you do is you set up a special needs trust. It's part of or separate from, can be 2 ways, your regular family trust. So you set up the special needs trust, and what it does, it'll say, okay, my equal shares goes to my 5 children, and that could be whatever. It can be real property, it can be coins, it can be retirement accounts, cash, or whatever you're doing, and the money wants to go in equal shares to your 5 kids. Okay, great. Then there's this, but then the trust continues, kind of a however, ... any money that is going to go to, let's just say, John, the incapacitated child, any money going to John is to be, instead of giving it to him, it goes to the John Special Needs Trust. That money is put away in a special needs trust, split off from everything else, and it's managed by a trustee, which is referred to as the special needs trustee. That trustee now is going to make decisions based on whatever the trust says to take care of that special needs beneficiary. So this could be your grandchild, it could be your child, And that money is now in the special needs trust available for them. Now, this is the coolest thing ever, because you got to figure out, what is that money used for? And this is a little bit crass, I guess, but I call a special needs trust a fun money trust. Fun like play, fun money trust, because it helps you think about what it's for. It's not for fun. It's not really play money. It's not, just throwaway money. The special needs beneficiary gets to use that money. But that money cannot be used for the basic necessities that like a government program would be paying for. So if housing were covered, or, limited housing were covered, if there were limited medical that were covered, if it were that the program could purchase, let's say the special needs beneficiary needs walking assistance or a wheelchair. Well, the government's only going to pay for the old fashioned that's been around since I was a small child, the chrome wheelchair with the little gray seat thing in it, right? That's all that gets covered. Well, all those things that are covered by government, the special needs trust cannot, and in fact is prohibited from paying for, because you can't replace what the government is paying. If you do, then the government gets to step aside from everything and say, okay, you now aren't going to get any government assistance. And this would be even assistance that this special needs beneficiary was receiving even while their parents were alive. So now it gets withdrawn because they no longer qualify for Medi-Cal or the special benefits, and they have to spend that money. They can't spend the money because they're incapacitated. So you need a conservator to spend the money for them. And it's going to be spent on their needs and their housing and whatever. And once that money runs out, then you can apply to get benefits again. So numerically, it's hard to say exactly what happens, but if for example, grandma and grandpa left, $50,000 or let's say $100,000 to their special needs grandchild, if that money goes directly to that grandchild, that money literally causes a forfeiture of all the benefits. So instead, grandma and grandpa would set up a special needs trust that would go directly, and their regular trust would say, when we die, this money goes to this grandchild, this money goes to our children, but this money goes to my special needs grandchild's special needs trust, not to her, but to the trust for her benefit. And that makes it so that it's protected from being taken by the government. It makes it so that she now has money to spend on things other than basic necessities. Okay. Wheelchair example. Government pays for the plain old chrome wheeled gray wheelchair, but she needs a wheelchair all the time. So she wants to be able to go upstairs. So the special needs trust, of course, if it had enough money, could buy a wheelchair in addition to, or as an improvement to what the government provides. And that is, maybe you can get a wheelchair that has tracks that will drive up and down stairs or whatever. But and the trust usually will provide for like travel and companion travel and whatever it takes to help the special needs beneficiary have an enhanced life. That's what they're designed for. That's why I call them play money trusts, which isn't really fair, but at least it's a way to kind of get your head around it. It's not basic necessity money trust. It's a play money trust. It's the extra, it's the life enhancement money trust that's important for anybody basically to have access to. All right, so that's basically how it works. There's a couple different ways to do it. One way I'm going to talk about setting up independently, and I'm going to talk about setting up as part of your own estate plan, like in your own trust. I want you to know, if you have questions on this or something you want me to answer for you, if you want an advisor on how to run your special needs trust, that's me. 855-500-TRUST. So if you have questions, you get a consultation with me. Let's look over at 855-500-TRUST. If you want to think about getting a special needs trust and maybe how it fits into the situation or not, we can talk about that. 855-500-TRUST. If you have a trust and you're thinking you might want a special needs trust to go along with it, coming up next, I'm going to talk about how that works, because you could just amend the trust that you have. You don't necessarily have to rewrite the whole thing, but you could maybe do an amendment to put it in if the rest of the trust will work out. Okay, so what we're doing on the Word on Wealth today, we're talking about special needs trust. First half, we talked about reverse mortgages, which was super awesome. So now we're going to continue after this quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about the two types of special needs trust that we can set. back soon on the Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
Gary, your team at GQ Law are experts at solving IRS and state tax problems. Talk about that.
When people have a tax problem, it tends to really stress them out. And one of the things we've been able to do is figure out how to resolve tax problems. One thing we might be doing is setting up a payment plan or getting a collection delay, maybe getting a determination that the person shouldn't have to pay the taxes at all. We do offers and compromise. We do audit reconsiderations. And one of the things that's a really powerful tool that some people don't recognize is sometimes bankruptcy can be used to actually eliminate taxes when there's certain conditions of the code that are met. So we can do all kinds of things. After we analyze your situation, we can figure out what's available, discuss your options, and figure out which ones to implement, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. And we can get people out from under all kinds of tax problems so they can sleep again. That's our goal.
Request your free initial consultation. GQlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
And about this broadcast outreach, the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
You're live.
It's a good day to be alive. It's a good day to be around. Tomorrow, we've got Ken Pecos, who is our real estate expert. He's going to be on with us tomorrow talking about the real estate market in specifically San Diego, basically Southern California, all over the place. Mostly he's down here in San Diego County, Imperial County. Does a great job. He's a friend of mine. He's helped my family, me personally, with real estate purchase. We send him stuff all the time. So it's really cool to have him as a partner in the show. And as you can see, we talked to Shanne Sleder, who's a great resource for us. Then we've also Thursday, we have Anthony Wright. Always special to have Anthony on talking about money management, investments and things. And he's an active money manager, not a passive money manager. He literally, he and his team, the incredible team, they will manage your money. They'll put things in stocks that you agree with what that company will do with that money. It's really cool on a faith-based investment platform. You don't have to be Christian to find out how that works. You can just be a good person or anybody, and you can learn from Anthony, and that's going to be coming up on our Thursday awesome show. And as always, on Friday, we have our Finding Joy Friday, which is a fantastic day where we talk about our mental health and the good things that we need to talk about that we just like to kind of not talk about, but we bring them up here on the Word on Wealth. At the risk of sounding a little bit forward, we are going to talk about mental health on Friday on our Finding Joy Friday. And we always take calls. Like today, we got for the rest of the show, right at the top of the hour, we've got a couple of lines open. You can call 888-344-1170. All right. In explaining what a special needs trust is, or a Good Samaritan trust, we've already learned what they can do. The next thing is, what types are there? There's two ways to set it up. One, You can set it up. Like, let's say you're a grandparent and you're thinking that you have a special needs grandchild, and you think that she could use a little extra money available to her, not handed to her, but available to her. You set up a special needs trust. You can do it now. It's a standalone special needs trust. You can set it up to where it has its own tax ID number. It's literally independent. I've had grandparents do this, which is pretty cool, because grandparents, for the most part, tend to have more money than their children, right? Because their children are going to someday be as old as grandparents and have as much money as them. So what I've had some grandparents do is they set up a special needs trust. And one in particular, they had good money and they put $150,000 into a special needs trust for their special needs grandchild. Of course, the parents know about it. Family knows about it, got a tax ID number. And that money is specifically and carefully invested so that it will continue to grow and it does good in the financial markets. It's invested conservatively like a fiduciary account should be, but that money is now available for that grandchild. So as a grandchild, if they need, special education, they need special equipment, they want to travel, they want life enhancement experiences, or they should be getting life enhancement experiences, that all has been funded by the grandparents. Now, after grandparents pass away, they could even put more money in there. And in fact, that's what these grandparents did. They set it up, and not only did they put money in while they were alive so they could see it working, is they put money in out of their own estate plan, where it said, when we pass away, then we want a certain amount of money to go into our grandchild's special needs trust, and the rest of it can go to our children. So it's pretty cool to set that up. And I thought it was a really good example of, people want to be charitable, they want to give, and here's a way, you can help another person that literally cannot legally or actually emotionally, physically handle money. It's just not in their wheelhouse. It's not within their skill set. Maybe they're incapacitated. Maybe they just think money is just to be spent and given away. And so you can set up a special needs trust. Now, the second way is you set up in your own trust, and sometimes this can be done by an amendment if the rest of the trust is cool with it, is you can amend and put a section, and it's a bunch of wording that we put in so that the money going to your special needs child would go into a special needs trust and be managed by a trustee to make sure that money is in there and spent properly and not forfeited to the government. Okay. Now, I've had many times when I have a parent with a special needs child and I'm reading through their trust, and I look at it and I go, why is your, this particular child, why are they only receiving $2,000? And the answer was, because if we give him more than $2,000 after we die, then his benefits will be forfeited because he'll have more assets than the $2,000. And I explained in the special needs trust. Well, then they had me amend their trust and make it so there's a special needs trust portion in it. They told their friends about it for special needs trust, and it kind of caught on that there's this extra cool special needs trust that can be left specifically managed to take care of special needs beneficiaries. So why do you set that up rather than just say, I'm going to give all the money to my daughter and she's going to take care of her incapacitated brother? That's an idea. However, if you give it to your daughter and say, make sure you take care of your brother, and she says, I will 100%, and she will, absolutely, no question. That is now her asset because it's not in trust. You've given it to your daughter with the promise that she'll take care of her brother. Now, she doesn't have to take care of her brother, but she will, because you'll haunt her, right? Come back from the grave and haunt her, like in Fiddler on the Roof. But we don't even want that to happen. We don't want that to go on her financial statement, because if she's going to apply for a loan or a student loan or whatever, that money that she's holding for the benefit of her brother is going to go on her financial statement because it is legitimately her asset. Okay. If anything happened, there was an issue with a creditor issue, or a defaulted loan, or something went wrong, and things just happen, right? Our economy, we know it's easy to get beat up in the economy. And let's say something happened and now a creditor came after the daughter that you asked to take the money to take care of her brother. that money is not in a special needs trust. So it is available to her and it's available to her creditors. So how crazy, that would be awful that a creditor could come and tap that money, even though it were earmarked for her brother. But because you gave it to her, it's her money. And if she's earmarking it for her brother, it doesn't matter. The creditors don't care because she could legally do whatever she wants with the money. It'd be in violation of mother's, mom and dad's desires. It'd be immoral. It'd be wrong and all that, but she could still spend it. And the fact that she could, not that she would, but that she could, then that means a creditor could. And believe me, a creditor doesn't go by should, they go by could, and they will take that money. So you don't do it that way. You set it up in a special needs trust so that the creditors can't even get to the special needs trust. It's just protected. And that money is now managed, and it could be managed by your daughter. She can be the special needs trustee, taking care of her brother with that money that's sitting in the special needs trust. It doesn't go on her tax return. It's not part of her asset base. It doesn't go on her financial statements. It's independent of her. It's independent of her brother. It's just set up to go to brother.
2 minutes.
Now, what happens when brother passes away?
All right, 3 minutes.
Well, the money is not going to go. He won't have children. I mean, usually, if he had children, it could go to his children. But typically, it's not going to. It's going to go to usually siblings or to a charity or to an organization. But the persons that receive the money after the special needs beneficiary passes away, those are called the remainder persons. So we look at those and we figure out after the child has passed away, what do we need to do now? Take care of whatever arrangements, pay whatever bills. And then if there's any money left, it goes according to the estate plan that was set up by the parents. Okay. Makes sense. So special needs trusts are cool. And we got to look at different situations, like what works, what would be the best idea, what would be the easiest way to make it work, would be the safest way. And that's all the kind of stuff I'm so happy to talk to you about. You can go back and listen to this show if you want to. It's going to be on our podcast, which is on kcbq.com and kprz.com. And you can go look those up and you can listen to the podcast every day if you want. You can get Gary on the radio every day live at 2:00, or you can hear this again on my podcasts, which are going to be on Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever other platform. You can even be on Podbean. Okay. You can listen to this again, and you can listen all about the special needs trust. All right. If you have questions for me, though, best way, call 855-500-TRUST. Let's work through it. Okay. So I don't really need to talk anything else about special needs trust. If you have any questions, you're going to give me a call, 855-500-TRUST. What we got coming up tomorrow is we have Ken Pecos to talk about our real estate and real estate situations, how to get into real estate, how to invest in real estate. And then we are going to have Anthony Wright and then our Finding Joy Friday. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. If you want to get a hold of me, the easiest way is my phone number, 855-500-TRUST. Free books on my website, Living Trust Basics, Accidentally Self-Employed, which talks about corporations, partnerships, and limited liability companies. There's a book called The Tax Bankruptcy, talks to you about how to deal with tax problems of all kinds, federal and state, and the potential that they may be manageable, or even you eliminate taxes with the bankruptcy. So that's the Tax Bankruptcy book, Living Trust Basics book, and the Accidentally Self-Employed. Those are all free on my website for August and September, gqlaw.com. So go to my website now, get my free stuff, gqlaw.com, and we will see you back here tomorrow, same time, same station. Hope you have a good afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995. With financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. The information you hear on The Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs.